And I've asked for the privilege to introduce Captain Edward Bartlett, Jr. He founded Bartlett Marine Corporation in 2019 after a distinguished career in the U.S. Navy and the Navy shipbuilding and ship repair industry. He is a licensed merchant marine officer. He holds a BS in Marine Engineering and an MBA in Finance from a Polytechnic Institute. He also completed the Global Leadership Program at Dartmouth College and Oxford University. During his Navy service, Bartlett deployed on 3 attack submarines and 2 surface submarines and was an instructor in the Navy's nuclear power training program. After active duty, he played a key role in submarine design at General Dynamics Electric Boat and later Eaton Corporation's Navy control business. An accomplished author, he has been published in the U.S. Naval Institute Proceedings. His Cold War novel, 69-Day Run, reflects his experience aboard the USS Gatto, emphasizing the critical role of shipbuilding in national security. And more recently, Mr. Bartlett has partnered with the Boilermakers, seeking to gain man-hours for our trade to put our brothers and sisters to work all over the nation, which is going to increase our man-hours, help strengthen our pensions, our annuity, everything that we need to grow in this organization. This is a new step forward for us as an industry, and it is my honor and privilege to introduce to you Captain Edward Bartlett.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Before I get going, I want to thank a few key friends and the key people who have helped us make the program that I'm going to talk to you about today a successful reality. First, I want to thank International Brotherhood of Boilermakers President Tim Simmons, who's been a strong advocate for our Shipbuilding Acceleration Initiative. I also want to thank Anthony Howell, Executive Director of CSO, for his support in getting this going. Can't miss my good friend Dan Sullivan down at the end, International Vice President for the Great Lakes. Nothing can be more true than the comment on Dan's LinkedIn profile. I'm exposing you here, my friend. No leader can build a great team without trust. Mutual trust and a true spirit of partnership have been the hallmark of our relationship with the Boilermakers Union, dating back to the formation of our company in 2019. And is no more evident than in the relationship we've built with these next 2 gentlemen. Both Blaine Tom and Luke Voigt have been fantastic partners and essential for us in developing our program and getting it deployed. As we moved from program development last year and planning to program execution, we'd have never been successful at Newport News without the fantastic partnership and support of Kevin Battle from Local 45, supported by Northeast International Vice President John Fultz. Finally, I want to acknowledge my fellow Clevelander, Marty Mahan, from Local 744, who, along with our many union friends in Ohio, has been a strong advocate for developing the construction of 2 new industrial facilities in Ohio to support accelerating Navy ship maintenance, primarily submarines. I'm so pleased to be here today to have the opportunity to chat with you about the opportunities for Boilermakers in the shipbuilding business. While he is unable to be here with me, he had planned to join me and come with me, but he was unable to come because of the rapid pace of change and activity within the new administration. I bring to you greetings today from Vice Admiral James Downey, who is the commander of the Naval Sea Systems Command. He's the Navy's top shipbuilder. So he wanted to make sure, and he asked me to express his support and appreciation for what the Boilermakers are doing in this program I'm talking to you about today. So with all that said, I'd like to talk to you about why the work of anyone involved in the designing, building, operating, or maintaining our submarines and our other warships is such a very special, a very important career. I approach this as someone who's actually done all these things myself. You see, I started out on the front lines as a Navy machinist mate. In that role, I studied and operated and maintained these submarines and taught others how to do it at Nuclear Power School. I served, as Tim mentioned, on 3 submarines including a brand new one. And as Zach Ziegler from our team has also done, I'll tell you, it's an interesting experience to take a brand new submarine that's never been to sea and submerge it and take it to test depth. And I did that on USS La Jolla. So very interesting. I also served on a really old submarine. The ship was nearing the end of its life when I was on it, and it was quite an adventure. It was the last ship of the Thresher class, and I'll talk to you more about Thresher in a moment. After I'd gone on to college, I then went on to serve as a nuclear construction engineer to build Los Angeles-class and Ohio-class submarines. Finally, I worked on the design of the Seawolf-class submarine, which was unfortunately truncated with the end of the Cold War. And then we very quickly pivoted to designing the submarine that's currently being built by the Navy, the Virginia-class. And I led the design, I led the conceptual design of the Virginia-class. Now I'm a CEO with my own company. So I've done all these things associated with shipbuilding. But I got to tell you, whatever you do, you never forget where you came from. My heart will never leave the waterfront. I'm right there on the front lines. So with my unique perspective, I decided to both recognize and share the implications of what I've learned over the years, over the decades, so that every single person in my company could understand exactly what they're doing when they strike an arc or do anything else on a submarine particularly, or any Navy ship in general. So somebody's got to tell me, how do I move the slides? Okay. Okay, there it is. Okay. So I wrote a book, as Tim mentioned, 69-Day Run. It's a story about my last deployment on the mighty, mighty warship USS Gato, SSN 615, my old boat tour. The book is a sea story version of my final deployment on this ship. And when, Dan will know because he's an old sailor too. And I'm sure some of the rest of you in the room are as well. A sea story is best told after a couple of beers when hyperbole and exaggeration are the expectation. But make no mistake, I write about things that really happened, things that you can never forget. So anyway, the book, which I have a copy of right here, is a gift along with our little handy-dandy pocket ethics and standards of business practices, are gifts to every employee on the first day of employment with Bartlett Maritime. So what I'd like to do, along with being something for every employee to understand the implications of what they're doing, it's also meant to be something to be taken home and shared with family and friends to demonstrate the pride in the work and the absolute importance of what somebody's doing if they're working in a Navy shipbuilding environment. So let me provide a couple of excerpts from the book to give you an idea of what it's actually like to be on board a submarine, underway, submerged. That's the way we talk about it. So from the preface of the book, let me go and start and say, imagine for a moment you're dancing on a razor-sharp knife edge for days, weeks, even months at a time, with no breaks. On either side of this razor-sharp knife edge is a black, inky abyss. On one side, the abyss offers certain instantaneous death. On the other side, the abyss offers certain mission failure with consequences that include unacceptable damage to everything that you love in life, up to, in the limit, the end of the world, Armageddon in literal terms. Does this sound like something that you want to run right out and sign up for? Lots of guys do. I did, Dan did, and many, I'm sure, of you in the room have done as well. So from chapter 1, which is titled Pre-Overseas Movement Workup, I have another excerpt for you. In this section, I discuss the preparations that are required before leaving on a deployment. You see, any Navy deployment actually starts months before you depart your home port for the actual trip. Anyway, the subtitle of this section is called The Greatest Danger to a Submarine is the sea itself. So Thursday, September 26, 1985, in the Narragansett Bay operating areas, south of Connecticut and Rhode Island, and east of the east coast of the United States. And it goes, "Emerge," came the loud shriek from the ship's loudspeakers. At the same time, the emergency blow valve, 6 inches above Chief Barnes' head, opened, and the rush of 4,500-pound air started screaming into the forward group main ballast tanks. Upkeep had come and gone. Gator was underway for pre-overseas movement or POM workup. And the ship was flooding? WTF. Meanwhile, as the ship started to bang around like a child's toy, it was now a mere 4,200 tons of men and steel being overwhelmed by the 130-mile-an-hour plus winds and up to 45-foot waves of a Category 4 hurricane. The ship's collision alarm started sounding. The collision alarm had obviously cut off the chief of the watch from his frantic announcement that he was initiating an emergency main ballast tank blow. No matter how many drills you do, thought Barnes, when the real thing happens, inevitably people get flustered by the real situation-related adrenaline, and things happen a little bit differently than the way they're drilled. The chief of the watch hadn't been supposed to announce emergency blow. He'd just been supposed to just do it and sound the collision alarm. The key thing, though, is he'd actually rung the collision alarm and executed the emergency man ballast tank blow. This is not good, thought Barnes as he jumped out of his bunk and into his pants and boots. The ship is flooding and we're right in the middle of the worst hurricane of the year. Moments later, as the ship banged around on the surface, in what was easily the worst part of the storm, he was out of the chief petty officer's berthing area and into the Gato bow compartment. He noticed that the bow compartment to operation compartment watertight door was already closed and dogged shut. So much for getting back to his engine room, he thought. As he looked around, he also quickly noticed he was the senior man in the bow compartment. "This is Chief Barnes, and I'm in charge of the bow compartment. Chief Perot, man the phones. Watson, get the compartment checklist and make sure that we're rigged for flooding and general emergency. Jones, make sure that everyone's out of the bunk and let me know if there's any flooding down in the diesel compartment. And everybody, hold on. We're bobbing like a cork in this shit." So, and I may be a bit biased, but if you ever wanted to really know what really happens on board the more than 20 United States Navy nuclear-powered submarines that are underway submerged right now, you can head over to Amazon or Barnes & Noble and get a copy of the book, 69-Day Run. In this case, we were out in the training area doing our pre-deployment certification exercise for our submarine squadron commander staff to support our eventual deployment. We had a very serious flooding casualty because the valve on top of the air induction mast stuck open while we were at periscope depth in a hurricane. We were trying to change out the air that was in the boat because it was contaminated with refrigerant gas that had leaked out of an air conditioner. I won't go into the details, but basically a major valve stuck open, and instead of bringing in air, we were bringing in tons of raw seawater into the ship. We call it water in the people tank, which is never a good thing. So just like the space program, where we recently had 2 astronauts stuck in space for 9 months because of the faulty thruster on a spacecraft, being submerged in a submarine requires many different systems to work together and to do so correctly. However, unlike the space program, when something goes wrong in a submarine, we don't get wall-to-wall press coverage. We deal with it, whatever it is, and get on with it. It is, in fact, a testament to the thousands of people in the key roles of designing, building, operating, and maintaining these ships that we've only lost 2 U.S. Navy submarines, nuclear-powered submarines, in the history of the program. We lost the USS Thresher, a virtually new boat, was only 615 days old when it was lost on April 10th, 1963. I'm a little older than some of you. I was a little kid at the time, and I remember it quite closely. My uncle had actually been supposed to go out on that trip. He was an air conditioning mechanic at the shipyard in New Hampshire where it was departing from, but he didn't go. The loss of the Thresher, likely due to the failure of a silver brazed seawater joint, ushered in many changes in the key areas of submarine design, construction, operation, and maintenance. including something called subsafe. Since then, we've only lost one other nuclear-powered submarine, the USS Scorpion, SSM 589, in 1968. Unfortunately, Scorpion was the last ship that had not yet been upgraded to subsafe, something that was scheduled upon her return from deployment, which is, of course, now still ongoing. So next Thursday on April 10th, I'd like to ask each of you to join me in a brief remembrance for the 129 heroes who are still on eternal patrol on the USS Thresher, on the 62nd anniversary of their loss. It gets you. Any submariner gets you. So back to 1985, some 22 years after the loss of Thresher, on board the last Thresher-class ship from that exciting emergency blow up into a hurricane during pre-deployment workup, we went out and we did the job. We went out and took on the vaunted Soviet Red Fleet, and we kicked them to the curb. We and our fellow submariners were in the very middle of winning the Cold War. What exactly did we do? Well, I'm going to take a line from the first Top Gun movie and say, I could tell you, but then I have to kill you. So take my word for it. It was a really big deal. Just like the really big deal that each and every one of the submarines underway submerged right now in support of our nation is doing today. Back in '85, the threat was Russia. Today, the threat is China. The problem is submarines are our most impactful ship or weapon system that can deter China from any shenanigans. Remember, you're going to love this name, as Roman author Publius Flavius Vegetus Renatus, isn't that a handful of a name, once said, if you want peace, prepare for war. Just like on the playground when we were kids, if you are strong and everybody knows it, you never have to throw a punch. And if you studied the original Latin, want the original Latin, Publius Flavius's words were, si vis pacem para bellum. So you ever get an email from me, you're going to see that on the bottom of my email. So our submariners, which won the Cold War, their submarines are so very important to maintaining the peace today. Just as critical today in preventing World War III. The problem is we don't have enough of them. Back in '85, we had 99 attack submarines, 41 nuclear ballistic missile submarines, and with that fleet, we kicked the Soviets to the curb. Today, we're supposed to have 66 attack submarines, 4 guided missile submarines, and 14 nuclear ballistic missile submarines. We actually only have 48 attack submarines, but we do have the 4 guided missile submarines and 14 nuclear ballistic missile submarines. So we're good for the guided and the ballistic missile submarines today, right? But then again, they're getting old, really old. These ships, when they were built, had a design life of 30 years. The average age of our guided missile submarines is more than 40 years old, with the oldest one being more than 43 years old. These exceptionally capable ships carry more than 150 non-nuclear cruise missiles, and they provide our nation's leaders with an important strike option. Unfortunately, they're scarce and in very high demand by the combatant commanders. The average age of our nuclear ballistic missile submarines is 34 years, more than 34 years, with the oldest one being more than 40 years old. Remember, these are ships that provide the ultimate guarantee of global stability in the nuclear weapons era, with 70% of the American nuclear deterrent capability always at sea, always ready to do a launch on the President's command. These ships are the bottom line in keeping the peace in the world. So the boomers and the GNs, the guided missile ships, are really, really old. Good thing, then, that the Columbia class, our replacement for these vital ships, is on schedule to replace them when they retire in the next few years. Well, I say it would be a good thing, but the Columbias are already going to be more than a year late to be delivered due to our shipbuilders struggling to achieve a nearly 5-fold increase in construction pace. This is definitely not good. Shipbuilding is in trouble, and the trouble includes not having enough welders and other skilled trades personnel to get the job done. Even worse is the equally challenging situation with our attack submarines. We're supposed to have 66 attack submarines, as I said. We only have 48. But that's bad enough. It gets even worse. We're supposed to keep 80% of our attack submarines available for operation at all times. 20% are slated for overhaul at any given time. This is how we get the long life out of these heavily used ships. Unfortunately, we got 40% of our ships sidelined right now, either in long-term overhaul or waiting for overhaul. In other words, about 9 more submarines than are actually available right now should be ready to go to sea or be at sea, but they're tied up awaiting maintenance. The result is that instead of patrolling the oceans of the world in defense of freedom, these 9 attack submarines are effectively missing in action. And the replacement cost for each of these submarines is $4.5 billion. This is not a trivial matter. Further, to add to our attack submarine woes, we've been building the Virginia class, the one I designed in the 90s, for more than 20 years now. For more than a decade, we've been ordering 2 of these a year. Yet our current build rate is only 1.2 new Virginias per year. We are far, far behind schedule here, and don't think that the folks in China and elsewhere haven't noticed. How do I explain? Oh, silly me. Not qualified here. So what have we done? Well, for the last several years, the Navy has been very aggressively trying to recover and rebuild the shipbuilding industrial base, particularly the submarine industrial base. At the peak of the Cold War, we had more than 17,000 companies providing material and equipment for our submarines. Today, we only have about 5,000 companies providing materials and equipment for our submarines. Our shipbuilders at Electric Boat and Newport News have been hiring employees as fast as they can. It turns out that the 2 critical elements of success in this effort to save our submarine force are people and parts or equipment. This is true both for new construction and to accelerate depot maintenance. You may have noticed the commercials for buildsubmarines.com at the World Series or in any NASCAR race. In the Navy, we call this an all-hands-on-deck moment kind of problem. It's where you do everything you can to keep the ship afloat and to kick the adversary to the curb. This is why I'm here today. So over my career, I've had a few crazy ideas. Some haven't panned out, but a number of them have. A couple of them turned out to radically change the way we design and build all submarines forever, starting with Virginia. And they're defined by my crazy idea back in the 90s. Well, I had another crazy idea a little while ago thinking about this problem. And as you look at this graph, you can see the early buildup was when we built the original nuclear ballistic submarines, missile submarines. We actually, in the 1960s, delivered a new submarine to the U.S. Navy on average every 44 days for a period of 8 years. Incredible performance. And then the second area of peak in this graph is where we built the Ohio class and the Los Angeles class submarines. And then, of course, the Berlin Wall came down. It was the end of all time. We went into a very weak period of not building much. You can see where we are today. We are at the same peak where we were in the 1980s, yet we're only halfway to the top. And then if you look out to the future, the graph goes out to 2054, and in 2054, we have a big peak while we're building the Columbia class, comes back down, but we're basically back to where we are right now. So my crazy idea this time was to turn this, everybody thought this was a really crazy idea, turn to the unions and leverage the union training programs. Further, since Electric Boat and Newport News, our two shipbuilders, have already hired every available skilled tradesperson within commuting distance of their shipyards, we'd have to look to the heartland of our nation and find people who had the skills, training, and experience to do these jobs, but who don't want to leave their homes and permanently relocate near the shipyards or other key suppliers. I look, for instance, at Northeast Ohio, where I live. If you live in Cleveland, Ohio, it's because you want to live there. Now, don't get me wrong, it's a beautiful area. It's a beautiful area. Ask Marty and the other guys from Northeast Ohio, they'll tell you it's a great place. But after industry started leaving the Midwest 30 years ago, the attraction of a great manufacturing career has been severely diminished. And this is not just a Cleveland thing, this is a national thing, which I think we're trying to rebuild and return to a national industrial capacity. But does anybody in this room remember the world-famous Ford 351 Cleveland engine? If you had a 351, it either came from Windsor, Ontario, and nothing against Canada, we love Canada, but, or it came from Cleveland, and Cleveland was the hot rod of the engines, right? Well, Ford used to have 3 huge engine plants right across from the Cleveland airport. 15,000 employees, excuse me, all union. They were, of course, UAW, but today we have one small Ford engine plant there, left with 1,500 employees. The Cleveland Browns, one of the 2, I think, only teams in the NFL that have never been to the Super Bowl, are looking to build a new sports complex on the land that was vacated when they tore down the engine plants. Maybe they'll finally get to the Super Bowl with this new sports complex. But it isn't, and of course, Boilermakers will get some work out of building the thing, I'm sure. But it isn't quite the same as 13,500 long-term union jobs. Not even close, right? Got it, John. So the same kind of thing is true in Iowa, Kentucky, even Kansas City, right? If you live there, you want to live there. There are many reasons, starting with family, but not to ignore the cost of living and quality of life. One of our employees in Newport News right now is a member of Local 45 in Richmond, but he lives in Iowa. Why? Because his wife wants to live there, family, cost of living, right? So the idea said, let's treat the shipyards like they're offshore oil platforms. Everybody's seen the videos of the crews flying out in helicopters to the offshore oil platforms, rotating every few weeks or whatever. And so I said, this crazy idea, I said, if the oil companies can make this work, so can we. So that was my crazy idea, and the Rotational Workforce Program was born. And I'm just, whatever. I'm beyond help. You know, I'm so far into management, I've forgotten my roots on how to run the slides. I'm sorry.
Want me to be your helper? I'll do it for you.
Okay. All right, thank you. So, working with the submarine industrial base groups in the Navy and under contract to Blue Forge Alliance, we took our idea and developed a rotational workforce concept into a deployable program with the great help of our friends in the Boilermakers. That was our first thing we decided to do, was turn to our friends, approach our friends, and say, can you help us here? Can you help us do this thing? And so the result was a groundbreaking agreement. Last April 29th, we signed, and Dan was there and a number of folks were there at our Cleveland offices to open up the construction sector of the Boilermakers to the shipbuilding industry. So I'm here to tell you that we're building a fantastic, highly successful program. Is it perfected yet? Not by a long shot. But my basic premise ever since I was that excited young 18-year-old on the deck plates of my very first Navy ship is that if we can work together, there's nothing, no limit to what can be done. So go to the next slide. This is the one that I told some folks about this slide last night, and they said, we want to see the picture. This is the USS San Francisco. On January 5th, 2005, it was on a routine trip from Guam to Australia. It was running, in the Navy we call it a head flank. It's wide open, and it was at more than half of its test depth when it ran into an uncharted mountain in the Pacific. So this thing was flat out, and it ran into a mountain and stopped in like 3 seconds. And this thing is, I think these are about 7,000, 8,000 ton ship. So the key thing here is the welds held. The ship came back. In fact, the ship, my new ship, La Jolla, is now a training ship in Charleston, and San Francisco is the other training ship in Charleston. So got a connection to both of them. So anyone will tell you that this work is not for someone looking for a cushy job where you won't get dirt under your fingernails. This is difficult work. Ships, particularly our submarines, operate in an unforgiving environment. The sea is a wild beast. Because of this, just like with the heroic shipbuilders who built Gato for me, okay, and the heroic shipbuilders who built San Francisco for their crew, these ships came back. Just like today, we need to build rugged, highly capable, great ships for the crews of the ships that are going out today. Because you never know when they're going to be called upon to go right to the limit, or in the case of San Francisco, go beyond their design limit in this most unforgiving environment. We need the best, not the slackers. We need to follow all the rules. I was looking at the video that was playing before we started, talking about observe the code. We need to follow the rules, do the job right. They exist for the safety of our people and to ensure that the ship will deliver whenever it's called upon. Our nation cannot afford a bad weld made 15 years ago, resulting in the loss of a ship, or worse yet, the loss of a key battle at sea in some future war to come. Just like on San Francisco, we need our welds to hold under extreme conditions. Strict professionalism, pride in your craftsmanship, respect for both the job and the rules is what we need, which is exactly why our company has partnered with our great unions, starting with the International Brotherhood of Boilermakers. If you read my book, you'll find at the end there's recognition for some national heroes. These heroes include the men and women who go down to the sea in these ships, who use their talents and skills to kick the adversary to the curb. They also include the heroes who design, build, and maintain these ships. No ship ever leaves the pier without taking along a piece of each and every shipbuilder who designed, built, or maintained it. I once had a boss, a guy named Mike Toner, who's a legend in the shipbuilding industry. He regularly said, and you can take this to the bank, the rank of shipbuilder is greater than any other, including admiral, president, or most certainly CEO. Mike, of course, wasn't exaggerating. Mike was right. Simply stated, a nuclear-powered submarine is the most complex, greatest machine ever conceived by man. That greatness only originates with her shipbuilders. So in partnership with the Boilermakers Union, we've developed and are demonstrating right now our Rotational Workforce Program in a pilot program effort, while building the future USS Enterprise CVN-80, an aircraft carrier now under construction at Newport News Shipbuilding. Has the program been flawless? Really? Are you kidding me? Of course not. But working in partnership with the union and our customers, we're ironing out the kinks. This is not a one-off. This is most definitely worth the effort, and it is a job that any Boilermaker who is privileged to become a shipbuilder should look at with great pride and satisfaction. And I'm here to tell you, people in very high places are closely watching the results of this effort. In fact, one of the first priorities of the new administration in Washington was to identify creative approaches to solving the shipbuilding problem. This led to us being invited to the White House to discuss this program, including our successes, challenges, lessons learned, even before the President announced the creation of the Shipbuilding Office. We were there on January 30th. We were the second company they talked to. Have no doubt this program has all eyes sharply trained on it. So what else is going on? Well, we're currently working to incorporate our lessons learned in the pilot program into an expanded program effort, likely to include other skills. There are multiple approaches being considered, but they all reflect the feedback and lessons learned from this initial pilot program. A couple of things are certain, however. First, performance is our most effective advertisement for this program. While this program has not been without its challenges, the Boilermakers who are down on the waterfront on the James River right now today, this morning, building the future USS Enterprise, are doing a masterful job, and it is recognized. Successful pilot programs, second point, always lead to expanded production programs, creating many more job opportunities. Finally, third point, we have many, many ships to build in the United States. You've all heard the President's speech to Congress. Well, the restoration of great American shipbuilding is high on his agenda. We're going to be a big part of it, and so will our partners here in the Boilermakers Union. I don't have to tell this to anyone in this room, but upon reflection, it really needs to be said. Our great country was built on the backs of our highly skilled union workers. Union skill, union pride, union craftsmanship. Our Navy and our nation are facing an almost unprecedented shipbuilding challenge right now, and we're committed to answering this call to action. So let me quote an insightful, wise leader. Now is our time to press forward. Now is the time to act. President Simmons, I could not be more wholeheartedly in agreement with your statement here. This, my friends, is the essence of why my company has aligned ourselves with the unions. How big is the total rotational workforce program going to be? We see a need for a decade or more, you saw the chart, of thousands of RWP employees, not just welders, but all skills. Where and when will it peak? We don't know yet, but I can tell you one thing with great assurance. The national security of our great nation rests in the hands of the men and women who will answer the call to serve our great nation in this unique but very powerful way. There is no doubt about it. When you're building ships for the greatest Navy and the greatest nation in the world, number one, you've joined a unique and very special elite group of great Americans. Second, your skill, experience, passion, pride, and hard work is building a monument to your craftsmanship that's lived for many decades to come. Think about this. When I designed the Virginia-class submarine, I was in my 40s. No one in this room is over 40, right? You're all young. You've all got decades to go, right? Well, we're going to be building, yeah, that's right. So we're going to be building Virginia-class ships long after I'm gone, and the last one will probably outlive my kids. Yes, indeed. When you build these ships, you're building a generational legacy. Finally, when you build these ships, you're building freedom. You're stepping up to much more than a job. You're stepping up to history. You become another George Washington, another Thomas Edison, another Clara Barton, or you become another Samuel Gompers or George Meany. You become, as I said, another great American. Wherever that ship goes, whatever that ship does, it does it with an indelible piece of you always there. Your skillful craftsmanship made it possible. The next slide. So, in conclusion, the heroic men and women who go down to the sea in these ships to protect our American freedom and way of life can only do so because of the greatness of the men and women who come before them to build these wonderful ships. In every weld, a masterpiece of freedom. If that were not true, if the skilled trades at Electric Boat had not done such a masterful job back in the 1960s building Gato and the other two submarines that I sailed on, I wouldn't be here today. The challenge for today's generation is clear, and I'm confident that my union friends here in Miami Beach and far beyond are going to continue to step up to the plate and knock it out of the park. Thank you very much.